Yes.
Okay. Hi.
Just talking about you.
You work good things?
Yeah, wondering if you were done, or if you might show up today.
Nope. It's final on Tuesday. Associate's degree is mine. High school diploma is mine and ready for the next chapter.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So good seeing you all.
Good seeing you too.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the Commission on Equities meeting for June. We will start by I will accept a motion to approve the agenda, previous meeting minutes and consent items.
I've so moved. A second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second. Before I open up for discussions, I want to recommend a change in the agenda. The item number 3, inspirational item. The commissioner that's going to present that, Commissioner Stolberg, is going to be arriving a few minutes late. Oh, is she here? Oh, okay. Then I withdraw that recommendation. Do we have any other discussion or recommended changes, updates? Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Great. So public comment. Do we have anyone in person who would like to share public comment with us? Yes, sir. Please identify yourself and share your comments.
My name is, my name is Don Melwood. I live in Panorama City and I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation Church in West Olympia. Pardon me. And I'm a member of a small group of members of our congregation that are exploring equity in the community, and I think amongst ourselves too. And so when I heard your presentation at the League of Women Voters, I knew I had to learn more about what Lacey is doing. So I met with Shannon, with another member of our group, to explain very clearly what you're doing. And I was invited to come to your meeting, so I'm here. Honestly, I believe you're doing the right thing.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I actively
Oh, go ahead.
engage in underrepresented people on your commission.
Jeez. Today is the bad day.
Anyway, I really do think you're doing the right thing, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing with us today. No one else? So do we have anyone by Zoom that would like to provide a public comment?
Chair Brown, we have no one on Zoom or by phone at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. We did receive 5 public comments by email. And the commissioners have had the opportunity to read those comments. And before we move on, I just wanted to just take one moment and say that, yes, I read through those particular comments and I found some of them to be disturbing to me. And I just wanted to, in particular, one that talked about DEI, is destroying America. I just wanted to just say that in my almost 4 decades, of employment, that I experienced, some challenges where DEI wasn't a thing that was even talked about during those times. I witnessed the Good Old Boy Network, where people were being directed to be hired, because they look like you. Where or it was based on relationships with that person or nepotism. It was not based on skills and ability. It's just based on other things. I witnessed hiring of women into lesser positions, not for no other reason except that they were a woman. So so there were, you know, some challenges that were there that I experienced and you know, been burned in my career, but moved to a position where I was able to impact that. When I was a direct hire manager for nearly a decade, you know, I was able to get away from some of that stuff and hire people based on skills and ability and hire a diverse workforce, which, you know, led to greater, you know, productivity and a better work environment all around. You know, I don't describe to the MAGA, Make America Great Again. I think that America is great right now and getting better, and we should work toward making it better. And being inclusive is one way to really make America better again. Moving backward, you know, make it better, great again. That doesn't impact the masses, you know, positively. It would have a negative impact on the masses to go back to the 40s or 50s or 60s where things were not inclusive, you know, for many of us during that time. So I just wanted to say that, you know, for the record, you know, before we move on. Okay.
The reference to the letters, did I miss that in an email?
So commissioners, we had some issues with the agenda due to the size of the packet. So that is all in your inbox as of today. So you can take a look through all 5 of the public comments that were sent.
As a separate email as opposed to attached to the meeting packet?
It's attached to that email.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. I guess I didn't scroll down far enough. Yeah. I haven't had a chance to read them to see what they're saying, but based upon Commissioner Brown's comments, I can imagine what some of those were about. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is being talked about everywhere by everybody. And we can only look at the positive side of the whole thing. I share a similar history that Cliff is talking about. We're calling it DEI now, but it used to be called affirmative action. Before that, it was called equal opportunity. And in years to come, it'll probably have a different name. But it all means the same thing, that we are not living up to our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence for all people. And so for those entities that are opposed to any efforts to bring about inclusivity, that isn't America. That just isn't. And the Juneteenth celebration was a terrific example of a coming together of a diversified community. And that's what it's all about. So, you know, to take the time to write those kind of caustic letters, it's most unfortunate, but that's what we're dealing with in our society today. And it makes our work that much more important and what we're about. And we appreciate your comments, sir. But it's time for that to be over with. It's time for that to be over with. So we're doing what we can as a commission to contribute to helping the city of Lacey rise above all that. So for the record from me, without having seen the actual letter, I will certainly follow up on that.
And even beyond that too, because even I'm hearing stories of things that happened in my youth to my mother, where women weren't even allowed to have bank accounts without their husband say so. And if that's the type of America from the 80s that they want to bring back, it's not the type of America I want to be in. So I think that taking America back to that time frame is not very progressive. And I think America is great as it is now, and we should be improving upon that. So yes, I agree.
Well, I don't consider America great as it is now. We got a lot of work to do.
Mhm.
We're still witnessing way too much racism, indifference, mistreatment, you know, all of those kinds of things. But we're better than we used to be. But we don't want to go backwards from there. But you know, just again, for the record, we aren't great yet. We're better, but not great yet. We're working on it, all of us in our own individual ways.
Yes, democracy is a living document, a living activity. Always be working on.
Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
comments.
Thank you.
And now we'll move to our inspirational item, Commissioner Stolberg.
Yes, can you give me like 30 seconds? I just parked the car from driving and I'm gonna pull it up, but not even 30, give me like 10 seconds.
Well, she's here.
I guess just park the car or some parking lot.
I was driving, or I worked in Seattle today, so I just got back from that. So give me 1 second.
So while Commissioner Stolberg is joining us, I do want to point out that Commissioner Hedgewood has also joined the meeting.
Okay, great, welcome. Good. Right. Yeah, while we're waiting, I just want to say we do have a busy agenda today. We have a lot of information that's going to be shared with us today, so it should be a really, really good meeting. Yeah, from the library and from the museum, so looking forward. Good company. To that. Good company, right?
Okay, I'm ready.
Right.
Okay, so I because it is June and it's Pride Month, I wanted to do something reflective of that. And it's a little long, but it's not super long because I kind of just like cut out highlights of an article that I'm gonna read about, and it's from the University of Washington. I don't have the date on it, but it's just a little excerpt about scientists advancing public health and medicine from the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm just gonna, hopefully it's not, it's a little longer than I thought. Okay, I'm just gonna read it. And I do have it in an email. I could send it if people want to read the full article later. Okay, so at the Institute for Stem Cell and Regenerative Medicine, again, this is at the University of Washington, researchers from more than 130 labs are harnessing the latest advances in biology and engineering to confront the root causes of diseases that impact billions of people around the world. Here we celebrate just a few of the LGBTQ plus biologists, physicians, and public health leaders who made lasting impacts on human health, often in the face of the persistent prejudice and exclusion that still exists in the STEM fields today. And for the sake of time, I think I'm probably only going to read a couple of these. So Sarah Josephine Baker was a physician and public health and hygiene crusader who persuasively noted that it was 6 times safer to be a soldier in the trenches than a baby born in the United States. This was during her time. Her efforts to expand and improve preventative care transformed life for generations of mothers and children. Baker developed a method to dramatically reduce infant blindness and directed a vision that regulated midwives and appointed school nurses. She was the first woman to receive a doctorate in public health and the first woman to be a professional representative to the League of Nations. By the end of her career, the infant mortality rate in New York City had fallen from 144 per 1,000 live births in 1908 to only 66 in 1923. And then I'll read this next paragraph. And then, like I said, I can send this out if anyone wants to read the full. It's a good article. The physician Alan Hart established the use of X-ray technology in tuberculosis detection, helped to establish widespread TB screening, and in 1918 became one of the first transgender men in the United States to undergo a hysterectomy. 2 years later, the Spanish neuroscientist Pio del Rio Ortega identified and characterized I don't know how to say that word. It's an immune cell in the brain that today is believed to play a role in many neurological disorders, including Alzheimer's disease. And then it goes on to note just, a few more scientists who made really significant contributions to the medical field, while at the same time having to deal with the discrimination that they have. And even today, the down at the end of the article, and actually I just read this today, that there's still barriers for this community in federal agencies like the National Institute of Health, and I think like the National Science Institute. So I just thought it was important to bring awareness to the contributions of communities that are being very systemically discriminated against, because that's what we're here for, is to bring awareness to these type of issues. So I'll send that out later if people want to read it.
Thank you, thank you. The piece that resonates with me is I have 6 brothers, so 7 of us, and 5 of us were born using a midwife. They call them doulas now. So I told my brother, I said, yeah, we had a doula, and they go, what is that? We had midwives, back down south. So that is great to know that she started that. Good. So we'll have our first presentation now, and that is from the Timberline Library. Holly.
Thank you very much. Let me get the screen shared here. And
while Holly's sharing the screen, getting it ready for the presentation, one of the things that the Commission on Equity, and part of what we've been working on with our draft DEI strategic plan, has discussed is bringing together partnerships and collaborations and learning more about what's going on in equity across the community. And so we're very excited to have a representative from the Lacey Timberland Library here tonight to provide an update on what's going on just a couple of doors down from City Hall.
I grabbed the wrong window. Just a moment. I'll just make sure I can find which one. Okay, that's the PowerPoint.
And I'll just do the introduction one more time.
Yep, okay, that's the right one. We all were smart and opened up all of our presentations, and then it took me a second to find mine. So let's just do that one more time. That's the one I want. There we go. And yeah. There. And I have to move everything around real quick. Okay. And then we're going to just move our folks right over here. All right. I think we're good there. There we go. All right. Thank you for the patience on there. So yes, my name is Holly Paxson. I'm the library manager for the Lacey and Hawks Prairie Timberland Libraries. I had hoped to invite my colleague, Juliet Lawson Hall, with me tonight. She is our amazing district manager of equity, diversity, and inclusion for Timberland. Unfortunately, she had a last-minute conflict and was not able to make it, but she said to tell everybody hi. Juliet is also a member of the Thurston County Council for Racial Equity. I am a member of our Timberland Regional Library's EDI committee. We say EDI instead of DEI, but it is the same thing, obviously. And I am on the accessibility subcommittee for us. So I want to tell you about some of the things that we're doing at our library, and give you a quick overview of where we are and what we've got working on in terms of EDI. So first of all, just in case anyone did not know, our Timberland Regional Library District is a 5-county district that covers 7,000 square miles in Southwest Washington. We cover Grace Harbor, Lewis, Mason, Pacific, and Thurston counties. Our district has 255 staff, and we have 29 locations, including 2 here in Lacey, the big library, Lacey Timberland Library next door. And then last year we opened up the Hawks Prairie Timberland Library in the grocery outlet shopping center. In the old liquor store, we went from booze to books. It's been getting some good use. This is our strategic direction for Timberland Regional Library. It is, sorry, I have to keep moving everybody. There we go. We started in 2020 and it's going through next year, and then we'll be setting up another one to focus on. We have 3 main areas that we're focusing on for everything we do at the library. Those include local communities and supporting those, children birth through 5, and equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts, which is what I'll be talking about tonight. So in order to, and for us to really bring, let me pull my notes up over here too. Get that there. There we go. So the first place that we needed to start when we were working on EDI for our organization and for our district is with the staff. In order to be successful in EDI efforts, we had to have engagement and support of the staff at every level. If we don't have that, that was our baseline to start. And then we went to collections. Obviously, libraries, we're big on our physical and digital collections. From purchasing, including display, we prioritize materials that uplift and make visible marginalized voices and groups throughout the library. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Part of that is that we do create monthly special displays in conjunction with a celebration calendar that happens at all 29 of our locations in 5 counties, as well as our regular displays where we focus on making sure that we are showing diverse authors with diverse content and especially own voices. For programs, we want to make sure that programming in our libraries is accessible to all members of the community, that the content of our programs reflects community interests and promotes interaction among diverse community members, and that wherever possible, paid performers are members of marginalized groups. In terms of our services for the library, the biggest thing for us is to make sure that we have a consistency of service provision across all 5 of our counties. 29 libraries in 5 counties, we have very diverse libraries, just like our diverse communities. And we want to make sure that the service provision, you get the same great service and level of consistency at all of our locations. We also have prioritized wanting to reach underserved communities and underrepresented community members and to do things to remove barriers to our service access throughout our area. We'll talk a little bit about that too. I almost feel like it's a TED Talk with how quick I'm going through my, my slides here. All right. So let's talk about staff first of all. And also, these are all real pictures. We don't use the stock stuff. These are all pictures of all of our staff from all of our libraries. So first thing we had to do was make sure our current staff are engaged with and supportive of Timberland's EDI efforts. Organizational culture starts with the staff. This includes engaging with the diverse staff that we currently have. What does Timberland need to do to make the library a place that they would like to stay? What do they enjoy about the place that they work now? What would be better if it could be? And we do have a high percentage of diversity in some areas across the staff. We have not as high percentage in some other areas of diversity as we'd like, but we have some work to do to get to that, to increase that. So one of the first things to do is to talk to our current staff who are members of our groups and to find out how things are going for them and what they need and what we can do to make them want to make Timberland a career. We also have reviewed our current hiring guidelines to reduce unconscious bias. We all have it. And so we can get out of our own way. So people from marginalized groups have the opportunity to interview and be hired. One way that we do that, I'm a hiring person for the library. So when I have a vacant position, HR goes and checks to make sure that we have minimum qualifications, and then they send us all of those on the hiring team, and we don't see names. We don't see where they're from. We don't see age. We don't see anything except their resume and their cover letter, with everything else pulled out. And then we use that information to decide who we're interviewing. And once we've made the decision who to interview, then we get names, where, what town they live in and all the other kinds of potentially identifying information. We're doing that to try and reduce our unconscious bias when we're choosing who to interview. And basically we want to try and make sure that our organizational culture that we're working to develop and improve aligns with and supports those strategic goals of focusing on equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Could you stop at that slide for a sec? Let me ask you a question.
Go back to the one before? Yes, ma'am.
Talking about your staff
Yes, of course. There you go.
and the hiring practices that you employ,
Yeah,
the anonymity of, the applicants and that kind of thing.
yeah.
But visually, I don't see diversity in that staff.
No, we don't have, in terms of ethnic diversity, you don't see it at all. We are, I mean, we're a library. We're 1,000 white women. That's what public libraries in our country tended to be, white women that work there, and that is still the case today. This is one particular area that we need to do a lot of improvement in to make sure that our staff reflects our community. And part of that is to making sure that we are not unconsciously not interviewing staff who may, for folks who may wish to work for us that are of diverse groups. The diversity that we're doing pretty good on is the LGBTQ+ community. We have about 1/3 of our staff throughout Timberland is members of that community. We also have other types of diversity for that, but ethnic and racial diversity is poor at Timberland. We need to do better, and we're trying to make some things to make that happen.
And
Okay.
so
Go ahead.
when you talk about intentionality and
Yes.
unintentionality, if in fact your current hiring recruitment process is not yielding you any visible racial ethnic minorities, are you talking about what must you do differently about that? If
Yes,
the staff of the library that serves a diverse population is to come closer to reflecting that population, and the way you're doing it is not yielding you any of those racial ethnic applicants, what must you do differently in your process
absolutely.
so that 5 years from now, that picture might look differently?
That's what we hope. This change in our hiring practices is very recent. It's this year. And just in the last 4 months that we have started our new hiring practices, we are seeing more diverse populations of folks to interview and populations of folks to be able to hire. We also, in addition to, so we feel like that definitely unconscious bias was a serious problem that we wanted to try and address. The other thing that we've started doing, and this is why I was hoping Juliet, because she does a lot of the level on there, but I think Juliet mentioned that we also started 2 years ago, and is this long past due? Oh, yeah. I mean, we're owning that 100%, this is long overdue. But we're also trying to make sure that we're advertising for positions and making sure that particularly in our rural communities, where that our rural groups, like in Lewis County, we have a lot of Latino folks. We're trying to make sure that we have our vacancies and our advertisements reaching those groups, whether having our local branches contact and talk to stakeholders when we have positions that are vacant, about making sure that our volunteers that are coming to help us out have the opportunity and are diverse. And we've been able to hire a few former volunteers, particularly summer library kids from the library. Right now, particularly at Lacey, I only have one BIPOC staff person. I have one Black librarian specialist. I had 4, but they all got different jobs. We are also working with not just the member of trying to recruit, but also to stay. And that is a thing that and part of that is not just with our policies and procedures, but also making sure that we're getting our staff on board with all of these, that we are making sure people understand what microaggressions are, that they understand how to support and engage with folks who don't look like us or who don't have a different background than we do. And it's recent, it's long past due. And these are the things that we're working on now, but we absolutely own and agree. Yeah, this is not what we'd like. This is not what we'd like. We'd like more. But we also want to make sure that this is a place where when we do hire folks, particularly folks of racial diversity, that when they get to Timberland, they feel that that's a place they want to stay for their career.
As well.
Yeah.
Issue with
Mhm.
schools as well.
Yeah, we don't have many men. We don't have many a lot of racial diversity. Like I said, we do have a high percentage of LGBTQIA folks. So that at least is getting out, but again, most of them are also female and white. So those are some of the areas that we're starting in to try and make that a little bit better.
Younger people too.
Yes, yeah, particularly because many of our entry-level positions, we want to try and have when we have our volunteers come in, that's for a lot of times, those may be some of the places where folks are just having their first experience working in the library. And our volunteer staff, particularly from the kids from the school, is very diverse. North Thurston is a great pool to pull from, particularly for our library kids, because there is a lot of ethnic and racial and income level, just a lot of different diversity there, and they come to the library. So I know, where we have people coming to the library and feeling comfortable, that's good. We need to do better about getting folks recruited, hired, and staying. And so that is still an area that is of interest to us, an area where we still have a lot of work to do. So I want to acknowledge that and thank you very much for pointing that out. You're welcome. Like I said, none of this is stock photos. This is what we got. Yeah. Could it be better? Yes, but we're working to try and make that happen.
If I interrupted you, you were.
No, those were my questions.
Oh, great. Well, good, great. I'm
Pick a
glad-
line.
And then, so we're just trying to, but that was one of the things that we recognized. We've also had a lot of really good trainers come in and recognize that, unconscious bias is a thing. And for a lot of us, what we were discovering is, it wasn't so much about like names or things. So that at least that we could tell, but a lot of us wanted to hire people that already worked in libraries or that had library experience. What do those people look like? Who are those people? They look like us. So that is one of the big areas that once we realize that, we're like, oh, yeah, good point. We want, particularly for entry levels, customer service experience. That could be retail, it could be restaurants, it could be volunteerism. And so we're making a deliberate effort, especially for those positions where folks can get in on the ground floor to find those. The gal that is my, works at Lacey and is our new librarian specialist, we hired as an entry-level position, and she's now getting her library degree and staying. And so we're, and we also recognize that it's a lot to be the only person that looks like you on staff. And so we are doing a lot of listening to find out, to make sure that the things that we are hoping to do, the policies we are doing, and when she runs into trouble, because she does, even here, I'm sure you know, that we are supporting her in a way that works best for her. Because again, it's about the staff and about the folks who are doing here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll talk a little bit about, show off the TRL celebration calendar here. Because it's Pride Month. And so one of the many things that we do is each month we have a featured on our website and at all of our libraries, celebrating a different group that that particular month is their holiday. We had Jewish American Month, I think was the last one. We've got Pride this month. We also had Juneteenth around that particular one, when we have multiple ones that happen in there. Autism, we're just really trying to hit all of the groups. We do displays, programming, and outreach and book recommendations related to these each particular month, as well as throughout the year. So like Black History Month and author features does not end March 1st. We keep that up all year, but we make a big push for it during the month of February. We do the same thing for Jewish American, for Pride, for Hispanic American, for the Arab American months, for those which have those celebrations in there. So different things to celebrate the diversity and uniqueness of our community and of our collection for the things that we have. Let's do. I'm going to just pull down and show a little bit about what that looks like here real quick. We have book recommendations for all ages. Our books for kids are age appropriate, just like our books for teens, just like our books for adults. We try and do intersectionality as much as we can. We also provide links to local events and resources Like I said, this is Pride, so we'll have this one on here. And we also, this is another thing that we do, but we also have been working on to making sure that all of our content and things is also translated into Spanish for accessibility. And a big thing that we do is a lot of recommendations for folks that are trying to find things to do. So that's one of the things that we have set up there. All right, let me get back to. Right. Here. To make a priority are to have diverse collections by diverse creators. So what that means is we prioritize buying material that are by diverse authors that feature diverse content. We want to make sure that all the materials that we purchase for our communities reflect community interests, but include diverse collections by diverse authors. We do a variety of sources for our purchasing of materials, including non-traditional, self-published, and small press. Because sometimes when you want to find a book by a particular marginalized group, there may not be a lot in mainstream publishing. So we are looking elsewhere for it to make sure that we have it in our collections. The idea is that we have great books by great own voices authors in the US and from other countries and in other languages, so that we have something for everyone in our library. I also want to mention that we don't have those areas separated out in our library. Great fiction is great fiction. Whether it's, whether the person on a cover is a Black person or a person who is gay, if it's a romance, there's not a special section. All the romance includes all the spectrum of that. All the mysteries include all the spectrum of that. How we focus and promote our diverse and own voices authors is displays. When you go into my library, either here or at Hawks Prairie, you will see all of the displays in various areas are featuring covers, authors, and content that are diversity, sometimes multiple identity of diversity. You can always find the mainstream stuff, but we're promoting the diverse stuff. So that's one of the things that we felt was pretty important. We are also big about supporting local creators. This is fabulous. I'm zipping through some of this content here so I can, because I know I'm taking a bit of time. So publishers say that they're publishing more works by non-white and diverse authors than ever before. And they are, but it's still a woefully small percentage of the whole. There will never be too many diverse voices in publishing. So we try and buy the stuff that's out there now. We try and look in the small places for it, but what else can we do? We can also support our local authors who are working in this way. And this includes this particular project, which is called Books by Kids for Kids. We have this lovely young lady here wrote a book. It's called A Tale of Tales. And when she brings it in, she donated the book to us. We put a barcode on it, put it in a proper collection. It's on display and it can be checked out. And we have a variety of books just like that, created by youngsters like this. They are searchable in the catalog and they are available and they get checked out and read. I hope that young lady, I have a collection of, I have a whole shelf by her someday. But it's one small thing that we can do. We also, our Lacey Loves to Read teen writing contest that we do. Of course, you're familiar with the amazing work Lacey Loves to Read does each year, where we're featuring a specific children's author for visits and in partnership with the schools. We also have teen writing contests. And we've been doing that for 10 years. And those kids, those are teenagers, going to be 6th grade through 12th grade. The winners from those get put into an ebook, which is available for download from the library's website. And that's part of that. Publishing is part of their prize as well. And most of the authors and submissions I get for that are from diverse kids. So it's another way to really help that up. And then again, we prioritize featuring program presenters who are members of marginalized groups. Put money where your mouth is. And we do have paid presenters in here. We want to be supporting our local creators. The last thing that I want to mention here, and I'm get into more detail here, but I'm going to just talk about it as an overview so we can get to if folks have questions. The library wants to be mirrors and windows across 5 counties. Has anybody heard of that concept before as it relates to books? All right, so books can be mirrors and windows. Books can be mirrors in that you open a book and you see someone you can identify with. This person might look like you, or maybe have a similar, the character might have an upbringing similar to yours. You can feel seen and heard in the books and the media that you're consuming. But they're also windows, because when, as recently as 10 or 15 years ago, when all of the mysteries were written by white people, do you think diverse folks, Black folks, people of different ethnicities were reading those? Of course they were. Now there is a quite great variety, but I have to tell you, everybody is reading books by diverse authors when you start pushing them forth. People of all ages, adults, we recommend books by diverse authors because they can be windows. And this is why it's important. When you are a community member who maybe isn't familiar with a particular identity, maybe you have never met a transgender person in your life, and you pick up a book and read about a transgender character, a well-written book will make you identify with the character in it. You will see, you will want this person to succeed. You will identify with this person when you're reading a good book. You learn to identify with and care about the diverse characters in the story. Caring leads to empathy, that leads to kindness and understanding, and dispels fear. When that happens, you start on the road to understanding and celebrating people for their own uniqueness instead of being afraid of it. It's a small thing, but it is an important thing. And it is something that's important to have all of our kids and people of all ages. People will read books, white people will read books about people of color. When there's a Black lady on the cover, they'll read it. They want to read good books. We recommend books by them to increase that amount. Back in, there used to be a thing in libraries where it was like, well, you have to put it in a separate section because, you know, these are for, it was like library segregation, to be honest. People who are readers want to just read good books. And when you're reading about diverse characters, it provides you a window into an experience that's not yours. We kind of think that that's an important thing. I'm recognizing my time, so I'm going to zip through a lot of these here. As I mentioned, for programs, we want to make sure that all of our programs feature particularly groups of marginalized groups who are presenting. These are the lovely Puerto Ricans of Thurston County that came and did a story time for us. Whole community showed up. They brought instruments. It was the best party ever. Kids had a blast. Lacey Loves to Read from last year. This young person here did one of our Pride make and takes to make a little banner flag in the library. And we have a Queer and Pleasant Strangers book club. We also do story times in Spanish and in English. We've done Native American storytelling, all sorts of stuff throughout the year. So it's an important thing we want to try and do. In terms of services, it's also an important thing to bring up meeting the needs of our community members. It's not enough to just treat each patron the same. That's not equity. We treat each patron according to their needs to the best of our ability. We want to act with kindness and compassion. We want people to feel not just welcome in the library, but included. So we partner with organizations that'll help increase services and opportunities, for our users. For example, we're a voting center next door at the library. So if people need to do last same day registration in Lacey, they can come to the library and do that. We stay open late to make that be able to happen. We make sure that we put information about if you have a felony conviction and once you're out, you can vote. We put that information out there and we work with our incarcerated population to let them know that they can register to vote and get that done when they get out. Books by mail, we will mail books to folks who are disabled and can't get to the library or who live so far away rural that they're over a certain distance from the nearest library. Expanded access, we do in several of our libraries in different counties. You know how the gym, if it's a 24-hour gym, you get a little key card and you can go in. Expanded access is the same thing, but for the library. So you can be in McCleary, and if you really need to print out something on a Sunday when they're not open, you can use your expanded access to get in there and do your printing and check your stuff out, and all you need to do. We got security cameras, it's safe. If you find abusing the privilege, you'll be removed from being able to use it. We haven't had too many problems, and it allows a greater accessibility that's past what our staffing can handle. And then I also want to point out, we do a lot of, or anywhere library is starting up here in Thurston County, we're bringing mobile services back to try and get out to places that can't get to the library to increase access. And when we are doing things like commissioning new library cards for Native American Heritage Month, we're gonna go with our local Coast Salish artists and indigenous creators to bring that together. And this is another one of this young guy. He is so great. He's on the spectrum. His mom, he's autistic, and he loves Plants vs. Zombies. And he has written us 1 book and 2 sequels for our community, for our collection. Very quickly, these are all the kind of different services available in the library. We have free Wi-Fi from 6 a.m. to midnight. You can reach it in the parking lot if the library itself isn't open. We still provide desktop computers, printing and scanning. It's hard to write a resume on a smartphone. Printing, scanning, and faxing, folks get $44 a month credit for making copies and doing all of those kind of things for free. It's 10 cents a page for black and white, 50 cents for color. People do remote printing. We have iPads available for library use. The staff, of course, are one of our greatest resources for helping folks find services and recommend things that they might want to read. SLP is happening now. It's for all ages. So I encourage you to stop by a library and get signed up for summer library program and get you a free book. With your library card, a variety of online resources in a huge variety of different subjects that you might need to access, including learning new languages, homework help, small business stuff, and it's all vetted from what would be paid databases that we pay for through the Washington State Library and are free to you as a card holder. Early learning is a big thing, and that's where all of us are. I know I went over time, I'm sorry. And questions, though we had some really good ones during the presentation too.
So for seniors who are
Yes.
not so technically, sound,
Absolutely.
if I walked into the library and says, I want to use the library,
Mhm.
help me.
Yep.
Are you able to take them through and
Yes,
show them how to use all the various technologies?
absolutely. Yep. We do that and we do that pretty regularly. We come in, we get folks their card. We take them around, show them the collections. We show them, if they're interested, opportunities for online things. We invite them to bring their devices in. Oftentimes we'll have seniors who have inherited a tablet from a grandchild or a child, and they want to see what this ebook thing is about. They can just bring the tablet right up to us. We'll take 15 minutes to get everything set up. And if they need more in-depth, we'll sign them up for a 1-hour one-on-one class with one of our staff to go through those kind of things, whatever they need. They need to make an email. They need to figure out how to get on their social security, log into websites, anything like that is available on there too. I was just over at the senior center this morning, as a matter of fact, with one of their digital literacy classes, sharing what resources we had, and got 2 of the 4 people their library cards right at the time. So that's a nice thing that we'd like to try and do. Digital equity, very important.
Right, so the card catalog don't exist anymore.
We do call it the catalog still. It's still called a catalog. It's just not, there's not cards, they're pixels. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Jackson.
Has the library system been confronted with requests to ban certain books?
I'm glad you asked that, because my director just gave a presentation on that 2 weeks ago and I remember everything she said. We have had in the past requests to remove items from our collection or to relocate things in our collection. We to date have never removed something from our collection, but we have relocated it. Sometimes we've discovered upon review that an item that was in the teen section maybe was more appropriate in the adult section. Now, is it accessible by anyone of any age? Absolutely. We don't you don't have to show us your ID with your age to go check out fiction from the adult section. Kids, we work that out with their parents, not us. Public libraries are not in loco parentis. However, we have not had, I think, let's see, last year we had 4 challenges throughout the district, 29 locations. That was pretty good. Previous year, I think we had 10. This year, I think we've had 1 so far, which is really nice. People will comment, but all of our staff are trained to have a conversation with someone who has concerns. And then if that conversation does not resolve in understanding or, at least hey, you can make whatever decisions you want to with your kids, but you can't make it for other parents and their kids in a very kind and understanding way. Then they can fill out the form to formally challenge, but I would say probably about 9 out of 10 of our conversations don't make it to that point because our staff are able to kind of walk through and explain why we're doing what we're doing. If we don't have something in the library that offends at least everyone, then we're not doing our job. That's
It's one way of looking at it.
the idea, yeah. And for those folks that find something that's on the shelf was, wow, I will say, no, check it out. Yeah. Thank you. You're very welcome.
Do we have any questions from anyone on Zoom? No questions?
I'm so sorry I went so far over time. There was a lot of stuff.
Anyone else? Great. We want to thank you so much for coming in and you the noisiest, loudest librarian I ever met. You didn't say shh or
Nope.
anything. We're good. We're happy to have you.
You need to come over, sir, on a story time day. The library is a hopping place, let me tell you.
Yep.
You can still find quiet places, but they
Yeah.
probably won't be at the desk.
That's good.
And we're partnering with the library for our LGBTQIA community forums. That's
I'm very excited about that. I can't wait to host and we were just having a meeting about that earlier and they're printing me up a big stack of things so I can send one of my staff that's going down to Olympia Pride this weekend and hand everything out. So that'll be great. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say I really took interest in your hiring concept and the option to kind of avoid any personal topics regarding race, gender, location, even as simple as that. So that way it's, as non-biased as it can be. One suggestion I have for that would be not
Yes.
only to kind of have that through the sorry, how do I explain this? When you ask them questions in the interview,
The interview process itself
Thank you.
during the interview. Yep. Keep coming. I'm taking notes.
not only outside of the interview, but through the resume process, for when they're actually in the interview, to
Yeah.
ask them questions. So that way, not only are we if you're interviewing, a white, female, typically like what you guys see in the library, do they prioritize DEI? Something like that.
That is a wonderful suggestion and we do
Even though
that
it
all
came out so horrible.
No, I totally got you. We actually have part of I didn't get a chance to mention it, but thank you for doing that because I can mention it now. Part of the other thing that we did to kind of revamp our hiring practices was also to standardize our questions so that we don't have one manager's I want to prioritize asking these questions while another manager somewhere else is prioritizing these. We standardize them and there is a whole section, there's 10 questions, 3 of them are DEI related that talk about the things that are our priorities, that ask the candidate what their priorities are, what that means to them. And for us, it's particularly if it's somebody that we end up wanting to hire, it's not just getting an idea of what kind of values our prospective employees have, but also where they're at in their journey.
Because you could easily hire, somebody of color that doesn't prioritize DEI.
Exactly.
Just as well as you could hire
Absolutely.
somebody, a white woman who doesn't prioritize DEI, or somebody, like you, who is awesome and is excellent for the position and, does everything they can for it. So you won't want to miss out on them as well as the people of color. So that's why I wanted to mention not only before the interviewing process, but also during, what does it look like? What kind of questions are you asking?
That is wonderful to bring up and thank you for bringing it up so I could mention that we just started. That was another part of what we did too. First you got to see what's wrong and fix it, right? And so that we've been doing a lot of that. And hopefully that'll help us continue to progress and get better. And so that I hope in 5 years, I have some pictures that maybe look a little different. Thank you again.
Thank you very much and feel free to come back and visit us again.
And please come visit me next door. My office is right behind the front desk.
I live
So-
over by Hawks Prairie, so I'm gonna go in there.
Please do. Yeah, we don't have any booze left on that in there. It was full of tequila when we took the space over, but we.
You drank it all up. Okay,
All right.
thank you. All right.
The websites, because there's very minimal.
I absolutely can.
I'm so
Thank you,
cozy
Paula.
back here with the commissioners.
All
Hi,
right.
sorry.
Oh, great. So, yeah, next we have the public meeting portal overview.
Yes, I am going to make this very quick. Thank you, Chair. My name is Kelly Adams. You've all met me in different functions and roles and times.
Settings and, yeah.
So I am here to share with you what we've been working on for the past year. The city clerk's office and public affairs have gotten together because we had an opportunity to make our public meetings documentation and the way that we share things and our website better. So I am going to hand you just a couple handouts here, some visuals. I'm very visual. This handout shows you just a hint of the changes that we are making. So the goal of the work that we've been doing is to continue our stellar compliance with the letter and the spirit of the Open Public Meetings Act, to make our organization more transparent, and to make it easier. You can be as transparent as you want, but if you don't make the information easy to get to, it's not incredibly useful. So this is the public meetings portal, and what I've given you is one piece of that. So on the top, you see your current agenda. You will also see a new PDF version of the agenda that has a font that is easier to read, is aligned with how all boards and commissions and public meeting bodies will publish their agendas. So it's simplified, so you as the viewer know where you can find the location, the time, and the instructions. And so that is a peek at what you're going to see there. And even more exciting is the plain text version that our system will also offer, that will have a few benefits. And I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's take a look at how we currently advertise public meetings and share information. So currently you go to cityoflacey.org, you navigate to public meetings, and you see here that there is a listing of our meetings. It's not terrible. If you expand on Lacey City Council meeting, you'll see this is where we publish our agenda packets. Not terrible. But I want to show you the new public meetings portal. And last Friday, I sent you an email with the password for this site, so I hope you've gotten to experiment a little bit. And this has 4 main places here. In the upper left, we have a navigable calendar, which is something that the community has wanted for the website for a while. And so the bolded numbers show you days when there are public meetings. And below that, we can actually do a date range. So if I wanted to navigate the 1st of May to the 15th of June, I could do that, and it would only pull up meetings for that time frame. And so in the window below, when you scroll down, it goes forward in time. When you scroll back, it goes back in time. It currently has 2 years of archives. And in the next couple months, we're going to be adding archives from 2011 forward. So this will have a lot of good, solid historical record. Up at the top, we have event categories, so you can sort by what board, commission, or council that you want to see. So right now we have all our Commission on Equity meetings. There's also a really great functional search bar next to it. And so let's say we wanted to know the legislative history of Juneteenth in Lacey as far as the city of Lacey. We can enter in the word Juneteenth. We'll spin a little, and it's going to show us every time when Juneteenth was mentioned. And as we enter things, as we create our agendas here, it'll itemize the search results. If it's in the archive, it'll just pull up the PDF, and you'll need to do a little bit more searching. But we can go back in time and we can see it was talked about at the city council meeting on June 15th. Here's the Commission on Equity meeting. So this is a much more historically useful tool for researching. You're welcome, Felicia. So let's go back to that public portal page that we were on. And if you zoom out a little bit, Shannon, I think that this computer is trying to zoom in to it. So if you hit Control and then your mouse wheel. There you go. And then, Yeah, like I said, so all the meetings that are listed, up for back in time, down for forward in time. And so that's one piece of our improvement. The other piece is something that if you were interested in, you can see, this is the board's portal. So if you'll pass it around, what this is it looks like the public portal, but it's for board members. So it would give you the capability to scroll through the agenda, to see the agenda items, to take notes on them. Your notes are private in that they're not published, but they are discoverable. So they're still public records. So if someone did a public records request, we would still need to go find them. But it's a great way to get ready for a meeting, write down your questions, remember to ask, remember to ask her when that started, right? It also shows you that green bar on the bottom is showing you the live view. And that's me as the staff person saying, oh, we're on this item. So if you're late to a meeting and you get on the board's portal, you know exactly where you are. Another thing that is very similar to is we're going to have a larger monitor behind the clerk's desk. And that is going to show a live view of what agenda item we're on, what votes were cast. So you can also do electronic voting and roll call in this system to make it accessible and transparent for the public. So most of the time, public commenters, they're not Robert's Rules experts. This might be the first public meeting that they go to and they're just really upset about something. It'll give them a 3-minute timer. It'll show them where they are, and it makes it a more welcoming and belonging environment for those who aren't experts in public meetings. Let's see here, the plain text. So can we click on a meeting in the new public portal? I'm going to click on the Commission on Equity meeting. And so this is what the public sees. They can look at the itemized agenda here. They can click on attachments and have them open in PDF. I'm not going to have you click on meeting the media right now because I don't want to create feedback if it has audio. But there's also a video they can watch. This is something they can watch the video through. They don't have to go to YouTube or any other links. Let's go to meeting files. So we have the agenda and the agenda packet. The packet is just the agenda with all of the attachments and any presentations we have ahead of time. Now, if you click on the download button, it'll download either a PDF or a plain text. Plain text is a game changer. If you have an assistive technology like a reader, or if you have translation software working, it removes all the formatting so that software can work better. Translation software is never perfect, but the plain text makes a huge difference. There was one other thing compatibility issues. If you're running an older computer, sometimes a mobile device, and the PDF doesn't want to come through, that plain text can come through beautifully. It lessens the load on the processing. And 2 other quick features, you can create a free account here, and that only involves a name and an email address. It doesn't have to be a real name, but an email address where this will send you notifications. You can subscribe to the Commission on Equity or to City Council or a certain committee. It'll send you notifications that, hey, we've published an agenda, come check it out. Or, hey, the meeting was canceled. You can submit written comments through this portal, and that'll send those directly to the city clerk. So it's sort of a one-stop shop for everything the community would need to know about a public meeting. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so you said in order to get a translated version of all this, they would have to go through the plain text. There's no translated option or future translated option of the same page. Just an idea.
So translations can happen in depends on what kind of app you're using.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do it through the browser, I would recommend if you're trying to do it with a browser or something on your computer, I would download that plain text and use it. Because there's a lot of steps that can get in the way.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious about translation and how that would look as far as like the whole website, and like even like, you know, like the stuff on the sides, if there was like, you know, a Spanish option for that whole section.
We don't have anything that cool yet. We would love to have something that
Just a
cool.
thought, yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Blackburn, that's a, you know, really good idea and something that we will continue to monitor and provide feedback. So Kelly is working, you know, with the developers of this program and can certainly send a message to that effect. Because like you mentioned, if you go to our city website, just as an example, you can get a translate plugin that is available, and it does translate it to, I believe there are an option of like 160 languages at this time. But that is not currently something that we can do with this civic clerk portal, but certainly something we are continuing to look at.
Any questions? I hope
Great.
this is a good tool for you
This
all.
is really good. Thank you so much.
When will we start using it?
You can start watching it now. You go to the link in your email, and we're going to change the website this Friday. So we're gonna upgrade everything this Friday.
Then we'll put it on our favorites.
So commissioners, moving forward though, we will be starting to use this more and more with our advisory boards. We are starting though with our city council and working through that process, and then we'll learn some you know, best practices and some tips, and then we'll move forward with more and more of our advisory board. So eventually, you know, Kelly's showing the example of the the board portal. Our goal is hopefully to get all of our advisory boards using the board portal. So that will be a tool that you all can use. So I'm sure Kelly will be back or reaching out with more information on what that is going to look like. That will require, when we get to that point, we will create sign-ins with all of your city email addresses. And we'll provide a follow-up email on kind of what the next steps are from there. But that will allow you to receive automatic notifications of when a agenda or other materials are published. So as an example, tonight's Commission on Equity meeting, when that was uploaded on Friday, once it was complete and finalized, that would be sent off to all of you automatically, and you'd receive a link saying you could now review the agenda packet for this evening.
So then you don't have to always remember when to send it out, and it's gonna do it for us.
Sure, or I don't have to worry about the packet being too large that it might not get sent out to all of you as well. So that is certainly something that will help with efficiencies in meetings.
And to ensure that boards have equitable access to the system if they decide to use it. We have iPads that will be kept here on site so that you have tablet access to them.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Sounds bougie.
Thank you. Right. Yeah, our next agenda item is oral history project. Aaron.
Hi, Ms. Adams.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, Erin. Okay, share screen. I'm so far away from I apologize. Alrighty. It's underneath. Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect.
So before Felicia gets started, I just wanted to start out by saying I'm really excited about this project and have been really looking forward to sharing it with you. This is all Felicia's idea and motivation, and it's her project. So that is why I am going to let her tell you all about it.
So I'm really excited to be here and share with you Stories of the South Sound, an oral history project that we are starting just in the beginning stages. My name is Felicia. I am the museum coordinator at the Lacey Museum. And the idea for Stories of the South Sound first came about when thinking of ways that we could include more community voices in our space. It was very clear that a lot of the history that is at the Lacey Museum that we use for exhibits and educational resources were lacking representation of local communities. So the purpose of the project is to create accessibility to the diverse stories of the South Sound area. We will be collecting oral histories in audio, video, and or transcribed format to showcase those vast experiences of our local communities, which will also help address those gaps in the Lacey Museum's collections regarding that diverse storytelling and historical accounts. And this is important because it relates to our mission. The Lacey Museum's mission is, Lacey Museum enriches our community and engages visitors by sharing vibrant stories of the past through the preservation and celebration of Lacey and the South Sound region's cultural heritage. Over the past 150 years, stories and histories of Lacey and the surrounding areas have been told by predominantly white and heteronormative perspectives. And the Lacey staff, we do recognize that. And because of this fact, there are, like I mentioned, significant gaps in what we have in our space, in our collection, and in our research. So through this oral history project, we are looking to begin filling those gaps to include histories and experiences of historically underrepresented cultures and groups throughout Lacey and the South Sound area. The museum is working towards bringing to light perspectives of people in different cultural, racial, ethnic backgrounds, as well as LGBTQIA+ community members. And I keep saying this, we're currently lacking that collection and the exhibits that can portray those stories. Okay. So we'll talk about what is oral history and then what do we mean by us wanting to do an oral history project. So the people involved in oral history, one is the narrator, the person that shares their story, the person that we're interviewing. The second person would be the interviewer, which is the person who facilitates, listens to those stories and records them. And then we know oral history is a method of conducting historical research through recorded interviews between the narrator with personal experience of historically significant events with the interviewer, and then with the goal of adding to the historical record. Oral histories are used in museums to educate audiences in order to create a more meaningful and emotionally resonant experiences. We also want to use best practice in working towards decolonizing the way oral history is collected in the museum space. So decolonization, the process of breaking the practice of replicating systems of colonialism and exploiting people from marginalized communities for their emotional and intellectual labor. And then decolonization in oral history, which is changing the practice from the traditional museum being the owner of the recorded interview into the museum as instead being the custodian of the interview with corresponding obligations to the narrator and their descendants. As ownership of the story lies with the narrator, they become a part of the interview planning process, including recording methods and future uses of recording. So it's the narrator that gets to decide what to tell rather than the museum choosing a specific topic. And they decide how that interview gets to be used in the future. The museum coordinator, which is myself, will be leading the project. And the experience that I have with oral history is actually drawn from my graduate thesis work, which focused on how museums can decolonize their practices in collecting oral history from communities who have faced hardship, trauma, and the diaspora. And so through that project, I interviewed 15 people from the Cambodian community in the greater Seattle area, which was the community I chose to focus on for the project. I connected with various community members, introducing myself, building those relationships and doing those interviews. And it was through building relationships that I was able to connect with someone from the Cambodian community that then introduced me, kind of took me under his wing and introduced me to different community members to interview. So here is the trailer I wanted to provide as an example of sort of the work that we're looking to do and the work I've previously done. And I would like to mention that part of this, you'll see the video quality is a little bit different. It's because halfway through that project, it was March of 2020. And so we could no longer meet in person. And so I had gone to them and recorded with camera, and then eventually we had to switch to Zoom. It wasn't ideal, but it was more important for them to share their stories authentically. It didn't matter about video quality at that point. So I'll play this.
My name is Susatina Chung.
My name is Prince Singwon.
My name is Satiri Shi.
My name is TV Sub.
So coming out of a refugee camp, I can't really expect my parents to understand what a quote unquote normal or average high school life American kid is.
Be my parents' translator, and I wouldn't know how to explain certain things in Khmer, so I'd have to say it in English.
Just feel that it's an instant connection to my ancestors and their struggles and their resilience. And automatically through that space, I really feel grounded in that I am Khmer.
I want to see that the younger generation learn their language, understand their culture, know where their roots come from, know their history.
I just want to give our message to our Khmer community that to be united, to be strong. Comparing to have a chopstick, right? A chopstick, if it just stand alone, you can break it. But if you bundle them together, very difficult to break. So we need to come together like that. As a community, we need to come together like a bundle of chopsticks so that nobody can break us.
So that was the project I did for my host site and graduate program at the Highline Heritage Museum. Very grateful to everyone who participated and helped with that project. So an important first step for the Stories of the South Sound Oral History Project is to identify those underrepresented groups in the community that we are not showcasing in the museum, and then build on existing relationships or connect with people to create those new relationships. We really do believe that by building relationships with local community groups and working to collect a wider story base, we're creating a means to have the museum be more representative of the local communities, and we not only want our space to reflect the community that surrounds us, but for our community to feel included and to feel seen and to feel heard. And we're hoping that this project will increase the number of guests that visit the museum from various backgrounds as well. Feel like, again, they can see people like themselves in the space. And at the same time, we hope that people will be able to learn from the experiences of others to provide a wider perspective of Lacey and South Sound history. All right, so it is also important to museum staff that this process is done through a practice of shared authority that will allow for authentic storytelling experiences and will help build meaningful relationships with underrepresented groups. So building trust is essential for people to feel that they can share their stories authentically, especially stories that are previously unheard due to preconceived narratives built by the cultural majority. And by allowing the story sharing experience to be guided by the storyteller, by the narrator, using formats and methods to meet their comfort level and allowing them to control the direction of the interview, we feel like we can create a more complete cultural history. And when I say that shared authority and what they're comfortable with, a lot of that is going to be, like I mentioned before, you can do it in audio, video, or transcribed format. And with the oral history project I did with my grad program, folks were able to choose what they were comfortable with. And then we had an oral history waiver form that we created that said what they were comfortable with their story being used for. Is it allowed on social media? Can it be on display in exhibits? Is it okay to use this in an educational program? And then they knew what exactly was being done. And at that point, it is their story. The museum is not the owner of those stories. We are the custodians. Okay, so for our timeline, as I had mentioned, we are just starting out. So we are going to begin researching local community groups and then including a list of groups that we do not have connections with and those that we do have connections with so far, and identify who we need to focus on and be researching to know more about, and then to start reaching out to folks and start building those relationships. So at this point, we're letting folks know that we are just starting out with flyers at community events, newsletters, press releases, social media, looking at which community events that we can table at as well. In August, pending a grant award, we are going to begin hiring an intern because from experience, an oral history project is quite an undertaking for one person. We will continue with it regardless, but it would be nice to have a little bit more help with this type of project. And we definitely want that to be a paid internship experience. September through December, we will continue on outreach and relationship building, and we're going to be focusing heavily on that during that time. And it's not on here, but I've scheduled it for in October to create oral history form for the Lacey Museum that was similar to what we did or what I did for the graduate program, as well as creating broad interview questions. What I did with my graduate work is folks were told ahead of time they could talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. I wasn't going to say, let's talk about the Cambodian genocide with the Cambodian community. Like, they could talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. And so we had very broad questions laid out that I would send to them ahead of time. If they, couldn't think of what they wanted to talk about, maybe just get something going to refresh memories or anything like that. And they knew that they didn't have to answer any of the questions or all of the questions, and they could just even share myths and legends of the culture. Like, they could even do that. And so that's what I think would be important for this project as well. So I'll be doing that during that time. And then December through May, we will be scheduling and conducting interviews, and then May to June wrapping up and then editing those interviews. And when we are editing, we're going to be including, little things like the museum logo and credits, and then removing any background noise. The only thing I would do to change the interview is to shorten it if since we're putting it on exhibit in the museum, to have a shorter runtime, because if folks are walking through, they're not gonna be able to sit through a whole long interview. We'll have to shorten them. But those longer complete interviews will be available in the museum collection. The timeline is mapped out by months rather than specific dates, account for working with communities, and this allows flexibility because we want to be mindful of people's time and effort working with us on this project. I think that building relationships takes time, and to have a specific due date on that wouldn't feel genuine at all. And so the intent is to continue to build those genuine relationships during and after the project. And this timeline is more for the grant. I plan on still connecting with folks and collecting oral histories even after that date. Okay, so project outcomes, I've touched on these throughout the presentation, but improve diversity of historical narrative, build and or strengthen relationships in the community, and then bring DEI concepts to museum operations, planning, and programming. And then striving to add original audio to exhibits and website, and then striving to be a safe space that people of many backgrounds see themselves represented in. We believe that providing a platform for different community groups to share their history through their perspectives and experiences will create a more welcoming and inclusive environment. It will increase engagement of various audiences and actually may challenge their understanding of history through their own perspective. And then I think that this will allow us to have the opportunity to have productive dialogue around the history of marginalized communities and what they have faced, and educate audiences from outside those communities. This work will also prepare us for the Lacey Museum's new museum project, as we will eventually transition from our small house museum into a new and larger space. We will have already started programs and educational resources surrounding the need for representation in those local communities. And is our goal to focus on creating the groundwork of DEI practices in the way we collect and present our local history now and expanding on it so that our communities can be a part of our growth, not only physically, but in DEI practice as well. So that is the presentation. Thank you. And then I would love your feedback because I want to make sure that this project does very well for our community groups. And so, yes.
So I really loved your presentation and I just wanted to add a few things, and I wanted to talk to you about Pride this weekend and a few interview processes that I saw there, and just like the value behind the Seattle community and just like kind of my realizations from yesterday. And I've been to Pride last year too, and just coming there at first last year, I just saw and noticed how Pride is the one, or Pride Month is kind of the one celebratory month where we can kind of bring everybody together, because the LGBTQ plus community consists of all different kinds of races and genders and sexualities and just all different kinds of people. And so, you know, if it was a, Black event, typically it's, celebrating Black people, typically you see, a bunch of the Black community or a Cambodian event, but with Pride, it's truly everybody. And I feel like Seattle, I call it a ginormous Olympia. It's like, it's a big, exaggerated, what did I write down? I said it's practically a dramatic reflection of the whole Puget Sound area, right? The Black communities there, the grunge community there, the Pride community there, the Cambodian community there. Clearly, it reminds me of the Cambodian clubs we have at our school. And so I really thought it was very nice of you to utilize the Cambodian community of Seattle. But not only that, but there's such a vast music scene and like ballroom dance, LGBT drag scene in Seattle that would be very, very great content to provide you. And I would love to talk to you after this, and we can connect, and I can kind of direct you into these like areas with these people as far as like music events, like DJs, for example. It'll be like a DJ or a clothing brand or somebody like you who hosts a whole event, and then it kind of brings the whole city together. It's like, oh, I know my friend who wants to perform. I know my friend who wants to have a booth. I know my friend who wants to, show off their catering business. So there's so many different events like that going on in Seattle that are kind of either surrounded by music or pride or culture that support everybody in different ways. So that's what I wanted to add to it. I also have a modeling group called Afro's Future in Seattle, and we would love to kind of incorporate our vision into your vision as well. As far as interviews, we've had interviews at our last photo shoot, and basically the whole point of our modeling and our photography is to represent Black culture behind what we do. So last time we kind of had like a hippie spiritual theme, and we had an all Black theme, and then we had a 90s theme. But typically to the eye, it's just like aesthetics stereotypically, but to us it was the hippie vibe was honoring our ancestral connections, and the all Black was honoring the Black Panthers, and the 90s aesthetic was kind of to honor the fact that we kind of established the streetwear aesthetic that we see going around today, and the grunge aesthetic and the emo aesthetic. It all kind of generated from African people turning cloth into something expressive. And so that's kind of the whole point of what we do. And we have people come in and interview us all the time in regards to how photography reflects our culture and our liberation, or as far as what it's like to be a model of color in the community. And we always our content is just amazing. We have so many great people from different communities, and I purposely put together the people that are in Afro's Future from drag communities, from ballroom communities, from pop or rock communities, or even like modeling communities, poet communities, photography communities, kind of bringing everybody together in a similar topic. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on in Seattle, but not only in Seattle, but also here, going into the schools, the GSA clubs, the BSU clubs, they're always looking for opportunities to not only help representation in the community, but also to be represented. And so I know as I graduate this year, but I know that a lot of the students in these clubs would be honored to participate in interviews, as I did interviews for people outside of the school district in middle school and on to high school. So just another idea for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me the idea of StoryCorps, the StoryCorps booths where your family interviews you, or maybe the BSU student union interviews their parents for you, or something to that, just a different model of it. I don't know if anybody's been to Manzanar in California, the internment camp for Japanese Americans. It is an amazing, amazing exhibit. And one of the things I'm talking about the audio is you'll be in a small little room where they lived, and you can pick up the telephone and the interview, or they're reading a letter to them to, you know, something. So the props become the mechanism to hear
Yeah.
the.
I recently went to the Denver Art Museum and they had an oral history display, but it was like an older TV. And it was playing on the TV, and if it was an audio, you could go pick up the phone.
Uh-huh,
So I thought that was very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited about this project. I mean, we have everybody here, you know? When did the Samoans come? You know, when, you know, everybody has a story, and we don't know, you know, the Cambodians, what they went through to get here, or the Japanese Americans, what they went to stay here, you know, and I think it's really exciting.
And very similar to the way the library has like, you know, they prioritize showing diversity for everyone all year round. But like she was saying, they specify specific people during specific months. And at the LA Pop-Up Museum in California, they do like, you know, once a month museums where it's like a LA Pop-Up Museum type thing. And the one time I went, it was the Tupac Shakur Museum, and there was all types of, you know, like celebrities and artists and just like overall people there looking at, you know, Tupac's art. And to see that physically was a really big impact for everybody. They also had like a lot of like immersive experiences as to where like you go in a room and the walls are kind of like full of some type of like electronic art, you know. I don't know if you've seen like the Van Gogh like immersive experience, something like that, but like very like cultural related. And then I had like his outfits and physical pieces of his poetry and journals from, you know, his childhood and on. And to even have like a small immersive experience that highlights a certain ethnic group during a certain time of the month is also a great idea to contribute to what Ms. Clay just said.
Any other comments? Do we have any comments from anyone on Zoom? Questions?
I would just comment that the oral interview approach, it can be powerful, can absolutely be powerful. The book that I recently wrote was a collection of oral interviews, and the stories that came out and the common themes that evolved, and the information that you never would have gotten had, you know, this person said, oh, have you talked to this person, or make an introduction to that person for you, and things that people were really just not talking about because it conjured up painful memories. And the training of the interviewer, you know, to know how far to go before you back up, or but in the end, it's a powerful instrument to share. And as I've shared presentations on that book, people have just been overwhelmed with what they learned from a group of Black people that they didn't have a clue as to what happened to this 25-year period of people. And that was just, it's almost 50 years ago. You know, this book was 1950 to 1975. It's almost 2025, another 50 years. So this idea of oral interviews and the storytelling that happens and the historical significance of what those stories are all about And I see it's just a year-long project, so you got some work cut out for
Yeah.
yourself. Yes.
Like I mentioned, that timeline is definitely for the grant process to show them, but I plan on continuing it because it's very important to me, especially like me personally walking into museum space and seeing another Asian person on the wall. For the first time was very powerful, very moving. And so I want to be able to do that for this community, especially moving into that new space. So I'm very excited.
We have quite a detailed community contact list that Shannon will share with you.
Absolutely. So we've been working on a community connectivity analysis, which we also welcome any input too on who might be missing from that analysis. The idea is it's a, constant living, breathing document, and then we'll continue to add, community organizations and members. And really, it's a tool for the city to use to do outreach and engagement and reach to communities that are historically underrepresented.
So, I was gonna say, so there is a lot more in just this Black population. Like I said, almost 50 more years have passed by. And so as those interviews were taking place and they get to talking and say, oh, you didn't get here to 78, you missed the cutoff for 1975. So it's a whole bunch of other people that's in the Thurston County area that's not included in that oral interview that stopped at 1975. So lots of contact information that can help guide you to, where'd you come from? What brought you here? What kind of experiences did you have? Just absolutely fantastic information. And that's just this one group, and not to mention the diverse community that we've become.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people doing interviews, and I was, I'm an activist, so I'm like, I get an interview, whatever, just like walking past, like, hi. But there are a lot of people doing interviews regarding Pride, its effect on education. What has Pride been like for them as a Black person? What has Pride been like for them as a teacher? What has Pride been like for them as, a male, gay male? So next year, I definitely recommend either connecting with some sort of Pride event or even just going to the festival and just asking people simple questions, because it's such a way, or even networking there to find people in the LGBT community to interview, because it's a very, it's a central place for everyone. And I feel like I've learned at Pride as well that the world is so small once you actually start living in it, right? Because about a year ago, I was really in my shell, and I just kind of began my whole social networking pathway. And a year later, I'm at the same festival, and everybody's like, oh my God, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are literally like all my friends are here now, right? And so it's so nice to be able to be a part of that community. And I highly recommend going there and connecting next year.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So Felicia, are those some flyers that are
I
available
brought
for
a
the
bunch
commission?
of flyers if you folks want some, or to like pass them out, hand them out anywhere. There is a short survey on there, asking first name, last name, email, and then if they know anyone who want to interview, if they were interested. And then the questions aren't, they don't have to answer all of them. They can just go for more information, or just gathering more data. Like it asks, what part of the South Sound do you live in, or have lived in the longest, or do you not live in the South Sound? So there's different questions on there as well.
To just kind of start your bank of connections.
Yeah, to figure out where we can start. Yeah.
And
Thank you
Commissioner,
so much.
I'll get a digital copy of that flyer as well, so that you all can send that out digitally in addition to handing out the paper flyers.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Great.
All right. So next we have Shannon with the land acknowledgement policy.
Well, good evening, commissioners. I am back in front of you to talk about the land acknowledgement policy. And I want to recognize that when Felicia leaves, I'm going to feel like this might be a little of an interview setup. So if you all want to inside the room, I'd be more than welcome. But I know we had
What was that?
I think we're getting some feedback from Commissioner Hedgewood, so I just muted that temporarily. So I'm gonna share the screen really quickly and dive into materials. So this is the, I believe, third time now that this has come before the commission. We previously talked about creating a land acknowledgement and a land acknowledgement policy at the Commission on Equity meeting back originally November 22nd of 2021. And then we returned to the conversation and started to look at the first draft back in November 28th of 2022. So if you go to those staff reports, there is a lot more information that was provided on kind of how we got to where we are now through this process. Our recommendation tonight is to take a look at the draft land acknowledgement policy. And certainly if there's any additional feedback, I'd love to consider that. I know the commission did provide some feedback during our last round, and I've got a few updates as well from the Nisqually Indian tribe since the last time we met to discuss the land acknowledgement and the policy. But the recommendation is to recommend the adoption of the draft land acknowledgement policy to the Lacey City Council. So just to give some brief background, and I won't go into the same degree of detail that I provided previously during presentations, but land acknowledgements are formal statements that recognize, pay tribute to, express gratitude and respect for, and affirms the ongoing relationship between Indigenous peoples and the land, and also helps raise awareness of Indigenous histories, perspectives, and experiences past and present. We talked at the last meeting about how land acknowledgements are rooted in many Indigenous peoples' practices and cultural protocols, and provided an example in the staff report from the Duwamish tribe, providing some information on how they have used land acknowledgements throughout time. Land acknowledgements, I know I just read through a few of these, but I want to point out some additional elements. But the purpose of them are, again, to recognize and respect Indigenous communities, provide support for Indigenous communities, and continue the important relationship building and authentic relationships with Indigenous communities, and also bring awareness of histories that have led to past and current development of areas, including histories of dispossession, displacement, colonialization, cultural erasure, and broken treaties. To also recognize Indigenous histories, culture, and positive impacts on the greater community. And importantly, we're talking about the relationship building as a step to building more action and better relationships with Indigenous communities. So in the staff report, I provided an attachment of the updated land acknowledgement policy, which includes the land acknowledgement as well as an abbreviated land acknowledgement. And we had additional conversations with the Nisqually Indian tribe since we last discussed this, and some recommendations that were integrated into the attachment, which is attachment 1, was to include adding language that this policy is subject to change. This is going to be in our city council policies and procedures, and all of those policies and procedures are subject to change, but they thought it would be really important to recognize that in this particular policy. And so how this would occur is through resolution of the city council. So any policy within that manual, it requires a resolution to get a change. So for example, when if this is recommended to proceed with the city council, it would be in the format of a resolution as the vehicle to get it adopted to the policy manual. They also stressed adding language on the Medicine Creek Treaty, and this was something that we discussed during the last Commission on Equity meeting. Briefly, just to highlight what is in the draft land acknowledgement, it is the purpose of the policy and the purpose of land acknowledgements. It provides the full City of Lacey land acknowledgement. As I mentioned, it also provides an abbreviated City of Lacey land acknowledgement, and this would, the idea of using the abbreviated would be when time or space, I should say, is constrained. So as an example, I know the museum does a lot of great historical markers and other exhibits where space is maybe very limited based on the construct of what the exhibit is. And a good example of that is the historical marker. It also provides how to use land acknowledgements, and specifically looking at 3 areas. So city meetings, events, or programming, city plans, reports, and other adopted documents, and then city signage, markers, maps, and other materials. And then finally, it also discusses where the land acknowledgement will be found on the city's website. So with that, we'll take a look really quickly at attachment 1, because I do want to just point out some of the changes that have occurred since we last reviewed it. right here in the very start, we did add the addition of this policy is subject to change. We did clean up some of the language here in providing, what land acknowledgements are, just to make our cases all consistent with one another. And then also added here that the land acknowledgement was reviewed by members of the Nisqually Indian tribe. Did a couple of just addition edits that were brought up during our last review, but I wanted to make sure that we all had the opportunity to see them. And then also just cleaned up a few of the segments here on land acknowledgement use. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that the Commission on Equity has. And again, the recommendation would be to motion to bring the draft land acknowledgement to the full City Council for review.
Great, so I'll entertain a motion to present the land acknowledgement policy to City Council.
I second.
Make the motion.
Oh.
You move.
I move.
Okay, it's been moved and properly second that the recommendation goes to the City Council on the land acknowledgement policy. Discussion, questions?
I have somewhat of a philosophical question as I read back through this with all of the corrections inserted and the Nisqually input. What use actually will the city of Lacey, not just the city of Lacey, but all of these entities that are making land acknowledgement statements these days? You can't go anywhere to a single meeting that it doesn't begin everything. And I see the purpose statement and that kind of thing. And the part that talks about the history of dispossession or whatever, those are very kind ways of talking about the stolen land on which we occupy. Savagely stolen, that part of it, we've romanticized out of this. And I see the Nisquallies have signed on it, probably for political or whatever reasons, but the more I think about it, and I'm not suggesting another word change in this document, don't get me wrong. That's why I said a philosophical whatever. But what use really will it serve for Native American peoples whose, we're all on their stolen land, all of us, other than Native American people. And I don't see an apology. It's almost like reparation for slavery in America. So what's, aside from this poor farmer thing that the city is doing with the acceptance of this statement, what other purpose does it serve? And I see the purpose of forming relationships and better understanding and that kind of thing. But when you read and learn about the history of Native peoples and the savage removal of the Native children that were sent to boarding school and the loss of language and name, it's tragic. And this statement is a romantic version of what has happened to Native American people. And so you make this statement at the beginning of your meeting, you go on with the agendas, and then it's business as usual. But when you start really digging into the history, it just brings tears to your eyes. So I don't know if there's an answer to it. I'm just speaking out loud of some emotions that conjured in me as I reread this again. And I read a long piece about the history of boarding schools for Native American children and the role the Catholic Church played in the rape and molestation. It's horrible. So we come to this, I don't mean this, but land acknowledgement statements that everyone's using now. And after all is said and done, if you understand the history of Native American people, it conjures up more pain than whatever's other word. And then we talk about the landmarks and this kind of thing. I remember some years ago, as you're going down I-5 headed north, and just before you get to the flats and you look up to your left and there's a bluff up there and it's almost overgrown now, but it's a white marker that is supposed to be a marker signifying the Medicine Creek Treaty signing place. And a history class at Timberline High School, who were descendants of a lot of the Nisqually people, through a class, and their aunts and uncles and ancestors knew where that was. And it was a class project that they built this white thing up there as a marker for the Medicine Creek Treaty signing. And if I didn't learn about that through this class, you know, and that's worthy of a highway marker on Interstate 5, you know, site of Medicine Creek Treaty signing, that kind of thing. I guess I'm just feeling it. I have no problem with what's here. It's pro forma, everybody's doing it. It's about as well structured as we can make it, you know, given the purpose it serves, but where does it go from there? It's just.
Well, I think that is the great question, Commissioner Hart, and I think that's one of the things we really want to identify is this is, again, a step, right? There should be multiple steps in continuation of this conversation. So this is one of many steps that we hope to continue this conversation, continue those relationships, and continue again to recognize and provide information on histories that have gone on in communities here and across this nation.
And I recognize it as a beginning, you know, and a step, but at the same time, it's just emotional. You know,
it can be a token, but it's, you know, my hope that the people who use it, the mayor, the advisory councils, that they have the heart behind it, that it's not just words, it's not performance. And I think we said in it that this is not to be
I understand, right.
But and for a couple of things, for me, acknowledging it is better than not acknowledging it. And over again, and pointing to the treaty. If you read the treaty, you know, it's a huge piece of history for the Pacific Northwest. And then I have heard Native people say and it's probably both ways, but I have heard some people say how impactful it is for them to hear that recognition. And I'm sure there are also Native people who are mad about it and that, but it feels really important for me to do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to touch on, like we were talking about, okay, so we do this land acknowledgement and we all know that it's one step in the right direction, but it's the first step to many steps that need to be taken. And I feel like another one of those major steps is just a matter of representation and the power of like you added in the museum, or like me being able to have a Black teacher, you know, seeing that representation, just seeing somebody like you makes all of the difference, whether it's through in-person interviews, whether it's from guest speaking. You know, I don't necessarily remember every Native American chapter out of the hundreds of bias information that I have read in school, but I do remember a lot of the guest speakers that came into my classroom and made that personal impact and told their personal stories. And I know for a fact that me as a Black student teaching Black Lives Matter to other students and students of color, white students, was way more impactful than hearing it from, you know, a teacher who has just, you know, copy pasted a curriculum and really doesn't know anything about the topic. So to have people representing the community, whether it's, you know, in those chairs or even in the audience ready to, you know, present a presentation, or just like having the physical body, the physical community present, active in the community is really what needs to happen, right? The acknowledgement is impactful for the Native Americans, it is impactful for, therefore I think it needs to be implanted way more. It's a great way, you know, same way that we honor the flag, we have to honor the people that were here before the flag. And they're the reason why the flag is even here. So we have to honor those lives as well. So that's what I just wanted to add.
Any comments from anyone on Zoom?
I have something else to say. I wrote it down and then I forgot. But the library's hiring policies, I was curious if the city also adopted any of those hiring policies or interview processes, or if we do something different.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Commissioner Blackburn, and we actually do something very similar. So when hiring managers get information, they don't receive any personal identifying information. And then they read through the qualifications of an individual and determine who's going to make it to the next step for the interview panel. And the interview panel does not receive any of the resume or cover letter materials. So again, they are getting information from the candidate just in the interview itself.
That's awesome.
Great.
I called the question.
Okay, question's been called for. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same. Okay, then the motion carries.
Thanks for indulging me.
Oh, no, this is great. Yes. All right. So now we'll move into commissioner reports. And the first is on the Juneteenth celebration. So I'll just start and then I'll pass it off to Commissioner Hart and others. Thank you. For the second year, I was able to work on the planning committee. And I have to say that this year, the planning committee went smoothly. We started so much further along than we did, the first year in creating the event, and the agenda and the activities, for the event. Jenny did a great job of leading the coordinating committee this year as a city representative. And so we worked, closely with the Fred U. Harris group, and they were really excited and brought forth some new and great ideas that, were exciting to me, where they've really opened up and wanted to include more of the community and some more activities and events to bring us together. And we saw that play out, at the park with the additional booths, display booths and information booths. And I think the city benefited, the community members benefited from that variety of information booths that were there, sharing information on things that are going on in the community, everything from the League of Women Voters to Pro Foundation, to the food bank, to and getting a haircut. So I didn't get a chance to get my beard done. They were so busy over there. It was real popular. And just the flow of the events and activity went quite smooth from where, I could see we had the entertainment piece. People really kicked back in the chairs and some had their booths, and I saw a lot of families there. It was really good to see the people participating. We had the 2 food lines this year that pushed people through, at a faster rate, and the food was really, really good, as well. So overall, I just thought it was a well-attended and well-executed event. The general did a good job. It was great having him as our keynote, and also having our Congresswoman, Marilyn Strickland, to be there and be a part of the event. And she was so excited, says, "Oh, this is the event for me," and it's in her district. So she was pretty excited, to be there. It's like, "Oh no, I'm coming to the Lacey event." And she was able to really network and talk to people who are her constituents. So it was pretty exciting to see. So with that, Makita, you have any comments?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. I am now regretting not being there last year. It was really good. I really enjoyed my small part of being in the planning commission. or the planning portion of doing the Juneteenth, one of the things that I took it upon myself was to take information with me as I went out doing my day job, taking that with me and trying to spread it around the sound as much as possible. So even if I was in Astoria, Oregon, I was telling people about Juneteenth in Lacey, Washington. And, you know, if they wanted to come up and check it out, and letting folks know about the free barbecue, the free entertainment. And then the morning, I even was putting it on my business page the morning of, I had sent an extra boost out to my community because it was right there at the rack. And so I put it out there in my neighborhood, just to ensure people, to let them know, you know, hey, everybody always wants free barbecue, but with what I provide in my business, now's your opportunity, come try it. We gave a couple of gallons at the barbecue so that people can try it with food. I got too many people coming up and asking if I could sell it to them. And I told them, I was like, today is a day of giving. I did have some freebies that I gave out, but mostly I wanted them to go and enjoy and give it a free sample, as well as the freebies that I was giving out that day. So that kept things busy. It was Vicey, not only the people in my neighborhood that came out and I recognized, but the individuals that were just there because maybe they had a graduation party that they were doing, or the ones that were there for the baseball games coming through, and they were curious about what was going on. And we would just tell them, hey, it's free, it's open to anybody, come out and enjoy. And that's what it's about. You know, come get to know what Juneteenth's about. Some other folks that were there, one of the representatives running for North Thurston Public School District's council. There was somebody there.
School board.
Exactly, yes, sorry, the school board. And so she came there and you know, we had that there. We had Southtown BIPOC, we had the BIPOC task force. Both cities, Lacey and Tumwater, that just was amazing to have all of that come through the community to kind of make things a little bit more cohesive. So I'm looking forward to doing it next year, and I'm hoping, and I might need to send an email out to the our little group that we had going, but maybe an after action to kind of start thinking about next year and seeing, you know, what went good and what we'd like to see go forth in the future.
That is scheduled for tomorrow at 2:00.
Oh, what? I better put that on my calendar because I did not know. So let me do that. 2:00, you said? We'll have a meeting. I'm gonna be late for, so let me put that on my calendar.
Did
Great.
we
Anyone-
get any coverage by the Daily O? I only saw the Olympia one being covered.
Oh, the news? Did anybody come out from there?
But there was,
Daily O.
I don't know.
was that the Olympian, someone had a camera and they were going around doing interviews?
This is a big story of the Olympian Juneteenth, and they didn't talk about the Lacey Juneteenth at all.
I don't know if we had, because I know there was a lot of people with cameras, because oh my gosh, I was so busy. I noticed cameras, but I didn't know who it was that was there snapping photos. I just know that it was like paparazzi, and I was busy talking and networking with people, and then all of a sudden I look up and I see cameras, and I'm like, and I'd like to know where those pictures are because I'd like to see them. But yeah, it would be kind of interesting to see who all was there.
It's too bad.
So commissioners, I can answer a couple of questions on the cameras that were there. I know we did a really good job in the public affairs team of getting the information out with the Fred U. Harris Lodge. And it was on, you know, places like our social media accounts, our website, the banner across 6, as well as flyers that we put out in a lot of other locations. And so we'll personally invite the Olympian next year to make sure that they receive the information on the 43rd Juneteenth celebration with the Fred U. Harris Lodge. But on the camera, so the Fred U. Harris Lodge typically has a camera person at the event, and they create a pretty amazing book at the end of it, kind of showing what the experience was that year. The city also typically, at least in the last couple only this is the second one, has a camera person there as well, taking some photos. And then this year, we also had a individual from TC Media who was the person with the film camera. And they put together a kind of short overview of that, which we posted to social media, where Hank Shagog is providing the history of Juneteenth. And so it was a great video. The photos, we will get the photos, and I can certainly share those when they are ready with the Commission on Equity.
Nice. And there was also a lot of photos taken by we call her our paparazzi from New Life Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Tons of photos,
Yeah.
tons of photos, and mounted it on her website and videos, and people who weren't there, you know, we're talking about, you know, what a fun thing they look like they missed. One thing I would mention and suggest for your follow-up meeting for tomorrow. Other than reference that Congresswoman Strickland made about the history and origin of Juneteenth, no other speaker talked about what Juneteenth is, how it came about. And since we're going to tents and displays and all, it would certainly warrant a particular historical storyboard of Juneteenth. So as people are moving around, reading and picking up information, to have more educational stuff on Juneteenth, whether it's the Lacey Library that puts it together or what. But that was a missing piece to me. There were a number of people, you know, I still don't understand what Juneteenth is all about. So you're stopping and talking individually, trying to inform people. But if there is just one display on Juneteenth, what is it? How, you know, then people, as they're roaming around and you know, a giveaway, a handout, you know, one sheeter. That would be one thing I would suggest somebody take responsibility for next year, so that it's great barbecue and a lot of people and good music, but what's the story behind Juneteenth and why is it now a national holiday? You know, so it's not just a day off with pay, but it has some significance. It's a purpose. So that's the one thing I would offer to for the committee to think about tomorrow, and they have a whole year to come up with what that looks like, whose responsibility it will be. But I thought that was last year, at least that was a one pager that the lodge passed out. But I didn't even see that this year.
Yeah, commissioners, on the pamphlet that was provided previously, I think the experience was that we kind of like really hand them out, and then we ended up collecting a lot of them. So, you know, thinking about other ways we might approach that, like you mentioned, like a storyboard of some sort, certainly think is a great idea for us to consider for the future events.
But otherwise, I thought it was tremendous. I had to bum out at the last minute before I even did my duty in the Equity Commission tent, and I didn't get a chance to apologize to you guys. I had signed up for 12:45 or something. But it was an awesome event. And when I had to leave, there were cars all the way down Marvin Road, Stillicum Road.
Did we get any numbers yet?
People from all
Tomorrow, probably.
over the place, you know, Federal Way. Got a couple of calls from people who had come down from King County, but y'all sure know how to do it up down there in Lacey. We took notes. So it went over extremely well. So the planning committee, Fred U. Harris Lodge, you know, in every city of Lacey, everybody who was involved, take a bow. It was awesome.
You know, just spread the word again, like I was doing, and
it was awesome.
Good. Okay, Commissioner Heswood, you still there? Any comments?
Commissioner Heswood is not currently.
Good. All righty. And we do have a few, you know, feedback, comments, you know, from the event, and they all appear to be, you know, very positive. And create more and host more events, by the BIPOC community, which is really good, so. Good. All right. So our next item is the LGBTQIA community forum update. Commissioner Clay?
Yeah, well, we had a little planning meeting before this meeting, and so the format is going to be similar to the Black African American Forum. And Commissioner Hedgewood and I will be kind of the running of it. And here are some flyers. Pass them out to all your community connections. Let's see. Hopefully you can all be there. We'll do the introduction to each of us. They'll do the introduction to the commission and what our plans are and our purpose and plans, and then we will go into the regular questions, and then we're going to start off with the questions this time and then open it up towards the end for additional comments. Talked a little bit about safety. It's at the library. The library is really excited to have us there, and it holds like 85 people, they said, so they'll have it all set up for us. They're going to Holly is going to kind of run down the rules of engagement and behavior for the library, so that it's possible that we will get people with negative comments. It's possible that we will get some feedback about our some of our our public comments that we have had about Chick-fil-A and the Black and African American forum place that we chose to do it. So we are just really focused on listening, on getting to know the community and seeing what the needs are. And so I think it should go well. We're the library is going to have a booth at the Pride on Saturday, Pride Festival downtown. So they will hand these out at the library booth, and John and I are both going, so we'll hand out things.
And I'll be at the barbecue festival, or I'll have a booth at the barbecue festival, which is the Saturday before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be happy to have a stack to get out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that way you guys don't have to worry about another booth and a last push out to get more awareness. Since it's gonna be right there at Huntington Park, which is close to right here. Yeah, so I'll get with you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, take some of these.
Yeah, I have your whole stack, but I didn't want to take them all, so.
We can certainly make sure there's more available.
Yeah, I might even do like some type of a QR code that I can pre-pack my bags with. It's actually gonna be a fundraiser. My daughter's gonna be taking over my booth for the barbecue festival. So it'll be a fundraiser for her. So we're hoping to sell a lot of our product. And with doing that, have these pre-loaded into our bags too, so that we can get a lot of people. Yeah.
Do you plan to have refreshments? Does the library allow food?
I don't know, we didn't really talk about that. Not too much was used when, I mean, you guys just had.
We just had water
we
that
just
we
had
gave,
water.
but that was some of the feedback. People asking, saying, oh, it's dinner time, have a snack, a little
Oh.
refreshment. So I'm just wondering if that was in the plan.
So Chair Brand, we'll have to check with the library. You know, like Vice Chair Clay just mentioned, the capacity of the meeting room is around 85 people. And if it exceeds that amount, there is a potential that we would move it into the larger library because we are in just a meeting space right outside. And so I would imagine that it's certainly, if it was in the larger, they'd want to make sure there was no food or beverages being consumed, but we can certainly check with Holly about if they have any rules or regulations on that.
I had a question that I didn't ask at the planning meeting. I have a few flags, Progressive Pride flags. Could I bring those just to decorate our space?
So again, we'd want to check with the library on kind of what, you know, the space, if there's any constraints or things, but we certainly here at the city also have our progress flags that were hung. So we can certainly check into about what kind of considerations we would need to think working with the library.
They're just small.
Good.
We like color.
Great. So it's had one addition that we didn't have on the agenda, and I forgot about it when we modified the agenda, but it was regarding a meeting with Dr. Sandifer at the North Thurston School District. Shannon and I met with him back on June 16th. I had, as I mentioned last month, that developed some questions and Shannon forwarded them to him and he asked for a meeting with us. And so we did sit down with him, spend an hour meeting with him and talking through some of those things and some of the school districts' processes and policies and procedures and how they really handle, you know, things, incidents. And so just briefly, I want to go through some of the items that we covered. And Shannon, if you can add to what I may have overlooked. So I felt that the meeting was, you know, very productive. I was happy that he asked for a meeting to be able to discuss these things. He's, you know, facing them head on. He's not running away from these various questions and issues and incidents that occur at the school. That's his job to really push, you know, the district forward along those lines. He represented the districts, you know, he presented school districts processes and procedures regarding investigating incidents, both on campus and at other venues. You know, he addressed, you know, disciplinary actions and communication with parents, students, and community members and how they do it. You know, the major question that I had that was missing from his presentation that we've seen twice. He did it here and then he did it at the League of Women Voters event, had to do with the handling of incidents. And so the question was, you know, how are the findings and results of the investigations communicated and to whom? You know, how's it communicated to parents? How's it communicated to students? You know, how do you close these things out once you do the investigation? You do the feedback to the community and to students and to parents. And so then too, I looked at the district policies that they have and that the board has developed and follows. And one of the policies states, the superintendent shall not fail to take all reasonable and prudent actions with respect to reporting, processing, and tracking incidents of discrimination. This is a mandate for the superintendent. Dr. Sandifer explained that a significant number of events occur throughout the school year in each of the schools, and that they are investigated. Each one is, of course, they have to look into it and investigate it. Some are resolved quickly, you know, disputes between students or something inappropriate may be said, and they do engage in take care of those things. And then there are others that are ongoing. They are not, able to be resolved, very quickly. That disciplinary actions are taken and parents are involved when disciplinary actions are taken. And the policy has processes that have to be followed when disciplinary actions occur with a student that they have to follow. He explained that a significant number of the district policy also requires it to have public information, a public information program that states that the district strive to maintain effective two-way communications channels with the public. And that was as a result of, incidents happened, and one that, particularly made the news, but we didn't hear anything back after that. It was a news story, it was negative, and that was it. But it went through an investigation process. My understanding is that, there was some disciplinary action that resulted from it, but not communicated. Such channels will enable the board and staff to interpret the school's needs in the community and provide a means for citizens to express feedback and expectations of the board and the staff. So there is a mechanism for feedback. He shared that incidents are investigated, disciplinary actions are taken, meetings with students and parents occur. And most, are productive, but some are not productive, those meetings. He stressed that it is important to know that there are two sides to the story. And it's incumbent upon us to consider, both sides when we're investigating the incidents. Assistant principals and teachers, at the forefront of dealing with these day-to-day issues and incidents that occur. And they play an important role in working with these, with the students in these incidents as they occur on campus. The principals communicate with each other on incidents, both, within the North Thurston School District and with other districts. So we talked about, what about the Olympia School District when that incident occurred? And he informed us that the superintendent did communicate with the superintendent from the Olympia School District to talk about what was the result of their investigation of findings and what actions that they did take. And the principals, they talk across school districts here in Thurston County in regard to these types of incidents and behavior of students. And that takes them to the final area. The other item was regarding students' behavioral expectations and how they made aware of the conduct on campus and when involved in other school activities. He shared the procedure for imposing corrective actions are made available annually to students and to parents. These expectations are in written form and posted to the district website. During the first week of school, every student receives their written document, and it is part of the packet of materials for new students. Yes, and so the school district is engaged and works to discourage, incidents with students. They encourage good behavior by students and administer discipline, when warranted. So each student, that was my question, how are the students instructed on the expectation for behavior, on campus and doing other events and activities, and that handbook addresses that. So takeaways from it that I noted were the district, has good policies in place and set expectations for students. While they're shared with students at the beginning of the school year, more can be done to ensure that students don't read the information, that students do read the information and are shared with parents. And if they don't do so, that they're reminded of the policy through alternative means, i.e. social media or some other tool where you give them this packet. What's important? reading about your behavior and how you should carry yourself, act during events and activities. That's not gonna be that important. They may not read it, may not share with parents, but we follow up and communicate it a second time or through a different method, you know, or maybe directly with parents. Close the communication loop with students and parents when incidents are resolved. That would be, you know, more effective approach than just letting it kind of hang out there. Oh, we did it. It's a secret. We can't talk about it. And then to partner with parents and community partners to more effectively communicate positive steps the district and encourage good behavior by students. The investigative process, disciplinary procedures, and address negative impacts when apparent. Dr. Sandiford availed himself to talk and work with the Commission on Equity on an ongoing basis. So one of the keys is now he is a link between, you know, us and the school board, where we can contact him, we can talk with him, we can communicate with him, we can ask him questions, and he can provide us answers. Either he can go to the superintendent, get additional input from the superintendent, but communicate and work with us. So if we get information coming to us or questions coming to us saying hey, they're not doing anything, or we don't know what happened, this happened, you know, there was no follow-up, we can go to him and pose those questions to him and find out what can be communicated to close out these particular incidents and what did occur. And we understand the privacy piece of it, that certain things can't be shared. We understand that, you know, they have a union, so teachers and others have, you know, rights, you know, as well. So it's not an open book.
What is coming to us with these problems? Like, is it a parent coming to us, and why isn't the parent following up?
Well, it's been an ongoing, you know, from back when we were first created, right after the incidents occurred. It was a question, you know, and they had the walkouts and the demonstrations at River Ridge and other things. So, and some of that feedback we got was that we're not hearing anything. We're not getting nothing, you know, what happened, you know, we're not really being, you know, filled in on these things and the follow up and follow through. So having, and I stressed to him that it's important to have community partners. If you're doing some good things, yes, share that. We as community partners, we can share those good things. When there's some things that you may have missed the mark on, then we need to be able to communicate those things as well. Everything's not always all good. You be able to communicate both, and the community has to be, you know, strong enough to take both, you know, into account when those things happen.
Yeah, at least some type of a, you know, hey, this is where we're at, not, you know, we're quiet, that doesn't mean we're working when we don't know that.
That's what I have. Shannon, you want to add?
You know, the thing I would add in, just want to make sure for anybody who might be watching, the second presentation was actually at the joint meeting between North Thurston Public Schools and Lacey City Council and not the League of Women.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, so small, just kind of correction there. But I think the other thing too was Dr. Sandiford in our conversation really was interested and recognized the collective benefit of us, you know, meeting on a more frequent basis. And so I know he came and presented, you know, back a few months ago, but looking to do that, you know, on a annual or, you know, every like twice a year basis. And certainly there was interest there. We also brought up the conversation of getting together, you know, DEI representatives on a more frequent basis, like quarterly, to have conversations about what's going on in the community. And he was also very excited about that idea as well.
He did have a booth at the Juneteenth event. See that?
I barely had a chance to look.
He was right down 2 booths over from you.
That just tells you.
You know, the comments, feedback, questions?
I don't have any comment on that meeting. I sat down with a couple of the other administrators from the district that invited me to lunch, asking about what am I hearing in the community and, you know, and what's going on. And I related to them the same things I related here, you know, the fact that I'd gone to that community cafe and the table conversations, that one set of conversation going on among people around the table, and to read the note boards up on the wall, a lot of they weren't congruent. And I shared with them my reflection on Dr. Sandiford when he came to us of, you know, and I shared here, just ran through some things so fast, and the whole issues of the concerns I was hearing in the community. They didn't seem to be registering with the school district, and the communication, as you were saying, community doesn't know what they're doing, you know, don't know how resolutions are being made. And I'm constantly in the environment of people with kids in the district, and particularly River Ridge. And things aren't as peaceful as the district seem to think they are. And I just encouraged the two staff people who were talking to me, you know, I said, have you updated your key communicator list lately? You know, I said, I'm hearing things you all don't seem to be aware of, and I'm not moving around in a particular circle of people. Stuff just comes to my attention, a phone call or whatever. So be cognizant of the fact that you've got to make better connections with the community and some feedback on what you're doing and what decisions you're making, because if you don't provide information, people will fill in the void with their own narrative. And so that's what I shared with them. And I don't know if they went back and talked with Antonio or not to reflect my comments. I said, you guys got to come out of those buildings and get out in the community and you know, coalesce. And so I'm glad to know he's offering to meet more regularly, and you know, but like I said to those two people, I said, last spring ended with a lot of unrest at the schools in this community. That group of kids who were seniors went on, but there were a number of other students who were freshmen through juniors who were still there. And so another school year start, and in their minds, no resolution of what happened last spring. And, you know, I said, there's just a lot going on that you all need to deal with. So you have an administrator that spent a whole year on administrative leave. Is she or isn't she? You know, what's going on? And so I was as forthright and honest and direct as I knew how. So make use of this however you see fit. But we're coming to the end of another school year. Let's you know, let's hit a mark and say, here's where we are, here's what's going on. So people can be excited, can be excited.
Their education.
I was talking with this is a kind of a distant niece yesterday, going into her junior year. I mean, her freshman year in high school. I said, where are you going to school? She said, my mom has enrolled me in online school. I wasn't familiar with it. I said, well, why is that? I said, don't you live in the River Ridge or Tindus area? She said, oh no, she does not want me going to the Ridge. So that is a very dangerous place for students to be. And, you know, I was surprised by that. This is an African-American young lady. I was surprised by that. So a perception is out there that River Ridge is not a safe place to send your child based upon in the community, because folk don't know what the settlement of some of those issues were. And so I just concern myself about what I'm hearing from people, students and parents, and then what I'm hearing from district officials. And they're not matching. They're not matching. So let's see how this progresses. You know, when people approach me wanting to talk about the schools. I listen. But you have to have information if you are to help partner with the school. No, it didn't happen that way. No, this is actually how it was resolved. No, here's the decision that was, but if you don't know,
Right.
people know what they know.
I'm.
And I'll just say this, looking at the upcoming elections, I think it is very interesting that every opening on Olympia has 2 or 3 candidates. Normally, nobody runs for the school board. They run unelected, unopposed. Every open position in Olympia has, I think all of them have primary elections. And the 3 openings for North Thurston, there is an opponent for everyone. One has a primary and the other 2 are going to the general. So something's going on out here in this stratosphere that people are becoming concerned about their local school boards and what they are or are not doing. And I don't know what that's about, but I'm just observing. I'm just observing. But I'm glad that meeting took place. I'm glad the communication linkage is beginning to happen. And let's just hope that the community can enjoy a much more peaceful school year. I went to River Ridge commencement and it was a beautiful evening. An absolutely beautiful evening. You don't have a hint of, anything going on, but one-on-one, one-on-two, still, yeah. So we just, as the Equity Commission, we just need to be tapped in and tuned in as best we can so that as people come to us, we have a little better handle on what's going on. And this is a great start. So kudos to you guys.
Yes, Elaine?
I just also wanted to shortly mention too, as my time in the North Thurston Public School District comes to an interesting close, I can say that all of the work that I did in the school district was noticed. It was I don't like to say good things about myself, but it was highly applauded and it was impactful. And the amount of people whose lives were changed just by simple education about themselves from all different ages. The first Martin Luther King Assembly I facilitated in the 8th grade had tears in almost every teacher's eyes and a standing ovation at the end of the slam poetry that not only motivated the students in the crowd, but also the students who participated to really step out of their comfort zones and be able to say to the students that were treating them the way that they were treating them in an artistic way, this is what you are doing to me, without even realizing that this is what you're doing to me. And so I just wanted to just say on that topic that the work that the Commission on Equity is doing and the work that went on in the protest is something that the students highly crave, because they're all going through it, but they don't necessarily know how to say it. And when there's one person or 2 people that decide to be that voice, they all just kind of flock and they're like, me too. And I, when we went out into the protest initially, there was 20 kids. And then when students heard what we were doing and saw us march, we had kids walking out of their classrooms and coming out with their friends by themselves, people pulling me to the side privately and just almost like a short little therapy lesson, and just them telling me their stories, and they just wanted to hear an assuring response, and the fact that they felt like they could get that more from an upperclassman or a student rather than an adult advocate whose job is to do that and who's paid to do that is something that's unfortunate to me. And it says something a lot about, one, the staff that we choose, our hiring processes, and not only that, but the things that we teach these students. They don't feel like the people that educate them, they can go to for proper education on how to handle these situations. Instead, they go to their peers. And sometimes that's not a safe place to be. And luckily, during the space in the protest, it was a comfortable space to kind of be vulnerable, because sometimes, and I can say from experience, a lot of times kids aren't nice. And when you think that you can be vulnerable with somebody and open up about a situation, it ends up not being what you wanted it to be. And so, 1, to hear stories from youth voices and from peers is something that kids are craving. But more than that, it's just for it to be heard and for these topics to be discussed. Like it was always shunned. Human rights was always like a political topic that we couldn't talk about in class. But to me, human rights isn't a political issue. It's just something that's common sense that everybody deserves. So anything on the topic of treating people equally should not be considered a political statement that we can't talk about in class. It should be a priority and something that needs to be done. So yeah, all the work that we're doing is going noticed. People love it, and there needs to be more of it. And people are holding a lot of these emotions inside. And I can say that because the moment that me and a few kids decide to speak about that emotion, there's 1,000 other kids that want to say the same thing. And all it takes is for, a commission to be like, hey, we want y'all to do this. And I would guarantee you there's so many people with the right advertisement and the right networking who want to participate and who really need what we're doing.
Thank you for that.
Anyone else comments?
We are gonna really miss you.
Yeah.
I'll still be here on Zoom.
Well, are you gonna come in?
We heard all my public comments.
Yeah, right,
Oh.
right.
Oh, great. We're down to
Director.
director's report. There we go.
Well, commissioners, I'm looking at the clock and I've got exactly 21 minutes.
So you're gonna talk for 21
And I'm
minutes?
not gonna use them all.
Oh, okay.
So I hope to keep this pretty short. I just wanted to give you an update on a couple of items that have come through this body. So I know a few meetings ago, the recommendation was to bring the advisory board stipend program to the commission. And so we introduced that to the Community Relations Committee earlier in this month, and it is going to go to a full council work session for discussion at the end of July. Similarly, with the draft land acknowledgement that you all just recommended to proceed, we are going to be bringing that forward to the Community Relations Committee tentatively next week in early July, with the idea of tentatively again bringing that to the full council for a work session discussion at the end of July. That wraps up all of my comments, and I said that in exactly 1 minute. So,
All right.
all right.
Well, great. Well, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Oh, I'm saying no second. We have to talk some more. Okay, it's been moved and properly second that we adjourn the meeting at 8:11 p.m. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
All right.
All right, good meeting.
Wow.